On this episode, we are excited to share with you some best practices for professional networking in public health. You're listening to the PHEC podcast, episode 373. The field of public health is so broad, overlapping multiple industries. With epidemiology at the core of public health, there are an unlimited number of ways to target specific populations, health conditions, environmental issues, and causes that matter most to you. My name is Dr. Huntley, and I'm the host here on the Public Health Epidemiology Conversations podcast. I'm an epidemiologist, consultant, and entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience in healthcare and public health. On this podcast, my guests and I engage in conversations that demonstrate the importance of public health and epidemiology across a variety of industries, helping you think outside the box and inspire greater positive impact in communities around the world. Now, let's dive into the topic of this brand new episode. Well, greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this episode. I am joined by my operations manager, assistant operations manager / operations manager, Laura. Welcome to the podcast again.
Thanks. I'm happy to be back. It's always fun to chat with you here.
Yeah, I'm chuckle with that because I think it's a great idea to have you with me on these episodes, especially with some like we're doing today, helping me to kind of share on a topic that I think it's really timely. So we're going to be talking about some networking tips and just networking in general in public health. It really applies anywhere, but this is top of mind for us as public health professionals. A lot of us are preparing. This is really conference season for, a lot of us in public health with a lot of conferences, some big, small conferences in the fall. We're coming out of the summer as, we're recording this. Summers tend to be a little more quiet, and then we get a lot of conferences in the fall. And then again, early winter, right after the first of the year into the spring, there's another conference season, or late winter, early spring, another kind of peak time, busy time for conferences. So this is just a really good topic. I think that people have a lot of different ideas about networking and what it means and why it's important. And they get some people just instant anxiety about the idea of networking. And I thought it'd be great to just chat about this and then also share this easy resource of the podcast as a way to help with that, make the whole process of networking just a lot easier. So Laura's going to help me with that. She's done some research in the background. I have some examples that we're going to go through. But I think we just start with like the very beginning of this and to think in terms of, what is networking and why is it important? And maybe we could, just kind of bring it down a few notches for people that automatically get this anxiety about networking. There's this conception that as introverts, we don't like networking. I'm an introvert. I do like networking. I just think it can be very draining. So that's another reason why I like to approach this topic. How do you feel about networking, Laura?
Yeah, I feel the same. I also can be introverted at times, but networking can almost be intimidating too, because you almost like to think kind of like a strategy. You want to find who's your goal person, that you want to meet and you look up to. How do you reach out to them? How do you just start talking to them? So it can be intimidating and you don't know what you're doing. And how do you just have a natural conversation with someone you've never met? You just look up to them. So yeah, it can be tricky.
Yeah, really good points. I know that for a lot of students or recent graduates, the focus is, networking and finding jobs. And I think that adds even more pressure. For myself, I started to just approach it as, an opportunity to meet new people. Even if your end goal is to find a job or maybe find a new client, if you're a consultant or business owner or whatever your end goal is, maybe, that job or that opportunity. But I think if we just focus it on an opportunity to meet new people, if you meet enough new people, connect with interesting people, then those opportunities will be sort of the secondary benefit. For me, it takes some pressure off. I think in public health, we always talk about how broad the field is. If you've been listening to this podcast for any period of time, you've heard some of our conversations with some very diverse individuals and professionals across the field. It's a very broad field, and there's so much to learn from what people are doing, how they came to this industry. And I think if we just approach networking with just meeting, new and interesting people in the field, it can feel a little less intimidating. It's just, just kind of getting to know some people. So that's kind of, maybe if we take that approach, of course, it is important to network, to get to know and connect with people, build a relationship, and then become top of mind for those opportunities when they arise, whether it's, a business opportunity or employment opportunity, career opportunity, speaking opportunity, whatever it is, to meet people and be known as this, be top of mind for those opportunities that do arise, because that makes the selection process, easier all the way around. So I have just a few other suggestions, maybe I would say best practices, but a few things that I'd like to share to keep in mind with regards to conferences. And that is, before you even get to a conference, I think if you wait until you register and you're about to go to the conference to think of all your networking activities as happening at the conference, then that's a missed opportunity. Think of so much can happen when you're engaging online before the conference. So that's where in a moment we're going to help you with a few more specific people and how you can leverage this podcast to help you with that strategy. But one thing, most conferences will have a presence online, and they will have sometimes a hashtag that they'll follow, that they'll use for that conference, for that year. So if you're following that conference hashtag or that conference's profile on social media, that's a great way to connect with other people that are planning to attend or speakers who are going to attend, and to connect with them ahead of time. I'm going to focus more of what I discuss regards to LinkedIn. That is the primary platform. For me, that's what I talk about most of the time. If you are on any other platform, then just take what I'm talking about with LinkedIn and apply it to that platform. But I think that following the hashtag, connecting with the conference site on social media, and then every time they post about it, people that comment on that post will be opportunities for you to engage with other people that are excited about going. And they always will often list some of the speakers and presenters. So you can look those people up on social media and connect with them as well. So that's just something to keep in mind, things you can do before you even get to the conference. I do think that it is important to have a good, elevator pitch or a very clear, memorable introduction. So how are you going to introduce yourself? And I say memorable, think of something that you can make sure that you're introducing and including about yourself that helps you stand out in their mind and easier for you to, for them to remember you when they're following up. For the clear, I would say at least, what you do, who you serve, what area or niche is your specialty at the very minimal. If you're looking for a job, if you're looking in a certain niche area of public health, then speak about that when you're in your introduction. And then I'm going to ask Laura for her opinion on this too, because we had this discussion at a recent retreat. But I think that, there's a little talk about, using digital cards versus, the traditional physical business cards. I think depending on the conference and the type of people who would be there will kind of give you a good idea of what you should have. But personally, I'm prepared with both. Some people do prefer a digital card option as opposed to physical cards. And some people like to have that physical card to exchange. So I think if you're prepared with both, that's a great way to go, and you kind of make a decision in that moment. But you do want to have an opportunity to collect other people's information and share yours as well. What are your thoughts on the digital versus physical card, Laura?
Yeah, I think the digital cards are a neat, and modern way to kind of embrace technology and sharing your information. I think too, like when you're traveling for conferences, it could be beneficial because, you're traveling. It's one less thing you got to dig out of your purse or your bag. So I do like the convenience of it for that. I'm with you. I agree it'd be beneficial to have both, because it's almost like knowing your audience, and depends on the place, the people, and preference. So, maybe you want to go with digital and that's what you like and you use that first. But if you get to that one person that you're networking with that would rather have the business card, you're already prepared and you have that too. That way you kind of cater to everybody. And you could even do a normal business card, but maybe you add the QR code to your digital. So then they already have both right there.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I just think that there are some watch outs for the digital cards, and I won't go down a rabbit trail on this for right now, but I would just simply say that if you're choosing to go solely with a digital card, make sure that it's very user friendly. Think about the end user. I don't like personally the ones that send everything to your inbox because things get lost inbox, or where it's going to force you to create a contact on your phone. Again, that's not something that I want. I don't want all the contacts added to my phone. So it needs to be something where they can choose where they want to save your information. That's really important. So just keep those things in mind as you're deciding on the digital. That's as far as I'll go on that one, because we had a long discussion about it at our retreat, which was great, but I won't go too far down the rabbit trail right now. And then I'll just add one more kind of best practices in terms of networking, and that's just the follow-up afterwards. So we're all guilty. As I look at a few cards on my desk right now from a recent, in-person engagement, but make sure that you make time to follow up with whoever you make connections with at the conference. Follow up shortly afterwards, continue the conversation and develop those relationships. And that's just important. While you're still top of mind, things are fresh in your mind and their mind, being able to follow up, keep the conversation going. It doesn't matter what if you're ultimately looking for the next client or next job opportunity. I think at the very least, if you've exchanged information, talked with someone that's interesting enough to exchange information with, then just continue to follow them on social media, engage with them on their posts, and continue to get to know more about them and share more about yourself as well, and just see where it goes. Those are just some things I think will make it a little easier. What are your thoughts, Laura?
Yeah, I agree. And I also think when you're continuing that conversation, it's also, helping you get used to networking and building those relationships, having those conversations. It makes it easier for the next one because you're kind of just chipping away at your own, maybe introvertedness, where it's just making it easier to have a conversation and just building up your confidence. So I think it's helpful in that way. And then I also think too, it's helpful to, having that conversation because just keeps you top of mind for that person for the next opportunity that may present itself just because you're in connection with them.
Yeah. I'm going to add a thing to it I just thought about. This is an extra tip for true introverts, because I am an introvert, but I consider myself to be very social. I love to engage with people and chat with people. It's just that my battery will run down. So I think that if you are an introvert you have these social qualities, you just, you have to be very careful about balancing your energy spend, then setting some realistic goals for yourself during a time where you're meeting and greeting a lot of people, making sure that you're not getting into maybe too heavy or deep conversations, but you're keeping things top of mind and kind of moving. And then you can continue with those, follow up and continue later, and just be a little mindful of how much you're engaging, and then have a variety of ways that you can engage. It's probably a good way to look at that, just so that you can balance, your time and your energy at these events. What we wanted to do is remind you all that this podcast is a great resource to help you with networking. And I say that because we have interviewed so many guests over the years. And if you've been listening for a while, or if you're brand new, you can go back and listen to episodes. And when you find someone whose story resonates with you, or something interesting about that person, something they said in their journey or the work that they're doing, connect with them. On our show notes, I'll tell you about the show notes page for every episode. If you go to the show notes page, you can connect with them. I recommend always going to connect with them on LinkedIn. So find their LinkedIn profile. And the easiest thing is to reach out and say, I heard you on Dr. Huntley's podcast. You were talking about whatever it is that caught your attention. Insert that in there. And just, say, I would love to join your network, or have you join my network and learn more. And something as simple as that And your message when you reach out to connect with them opens that door, that opportunity. They're going to be excited to talk to you. They were on the podcast. I've talked to all of them, love all the guests that have been on this podcast. And I can tell you that they would really welcome someone reaching out, and especially leading in with, you heard them on the podcast, and whatever it is that resonated with you or, touched you in that discussion, lead with that and just keep it just a genuine desire to meet and connect with that person. If that's your goal, keep it there and let that relationship develop, engage with them, follow with them. And I think that's an easy way to get it, to kick off the conversation. I can't guarantee, like if it's someone who's been on the podcast a long time ago, I'm sure they're still going to remember being on the podcast. And that'd be probably a surprise in their message box, that you remembered them or that you found them. So Laura, I asked, as we were planning for this episode, I asked her to narrow down a handful of people that we could help you get started with. And I asked her to limit it to 5, which I know was probably a challenge because we have a lot of really good guests. And for those of you not familiar, Laura has been on the team for 5 years and became full-time this year as our assistant operations manager. But she has been in the background for many years, providing a lot of support to the podcast. So most of these guests over the years, Laura has had some hand in coordinating, getting them to the mic and getting their episodes out. She really does have her own spin on, getting to know and engage with a lot of our guests. But so Laura's narrowed it down to 5. And was that hard to do, Laura?
It was hard to do, but all of our guests have been great to work with, and they are all great resources. So yeah, it was hard to just narrow down the 5, but regardless of if you've been listening for a while or you're new and you're just kind of going through, I'm pretty sure all of our guests would welcome someone reaching out and networking, because I feel like we're kind of all in the same boat. Everybody's just networking and connecting and working together at this point.
Yeah, I agree. So we're going to go down, we're going to mention these 5 just to, and I want to do this just to give you like a starting point. Someone like maybe if you hadn't heard the episode, we're going to give you the episode number. You can go listen to the full episode and then reach out to them if you'd like. And you're not limited to these 5. So please scroll through all of our episodes, find one that is interesting to you, listen to that episode, and then reach out to them. So let's start with the first one. Who's the first one on your list?
So the first person I thought of was from episode 248 back in 2022, and it was Brian O. Buckley. He is a multidimensional healthcare professional, an educator, and a researcher. And his episode was pretty interesting. He wears many hats in his role, but he does focus mainly on addressing health inequities and improving the well-being of where people live, work, and play. But he had some really great advice to give, almost like his motto or his advice was to be hungry, be curious, and be humble. So that I felt was, very good and stood out. And I think he'd be a great person to network with.
Yes, I agree. I am so biased. I love all of our guests too. I had to hand this off to Laura. I don't think I would have been able to narrow it down, but Dr. Brian O'Buckley is very much how he described. He's hungry, he's curious, and he's humble. I've met him in person. He's the guy at the conference that will always take a selfie. He's taken selfies with so many people, and he's very active and engaging across all social media, but I know he's very active on LinkedIn. So I encourage you he's just an inspiring story. Listen to his episode. And so this was back in 2022. So yeah, it seems like I've known him I think we were crossing paths in social media for years before that, but I did meet him in person, and maybe that was the year 2022, maybe 21 that I met him in person. But he's someone that I highly recommend. Listen to that episode, engaging with him. Definitely follow him on social media at the very least. And he attends a lot of conferences. So there's the chance of, being able to meet with him in person is pretty high if you attend conferences as well. So that's a great one. All right. Who's next?
The next person I thought of was from episode 108 in 2019. It was Dr. Karen Mancera Suevas, I believe.
Suevas, yeah.
She is a researcher and a practitioner. And on her episode, she highlights the challenges faced by older populations in rural communities and accessing healthcare. I thought that episode would be, a good one to tune into and kind of get to know her a little bit more. She emphasizes her role or the role in public health in various aspects of daily life. She kind of talks about the sanitation, gun safety, food safety. So she also kind of has a wide variety of, advice and just kind of a good insight in what she does and how she might be a good person to connect with and resourceful.
Yes, I adore her. I've met with her several times in person over the years. We've engaged and kept in touch across social media as well. We recently brought her back for a second episode. So that was, let's see, our recording and publishing times aren't the same, as you guys are understanding. So by the time you hear this episode, hers will have just been maybe a few episodes before this one. So we'll provide that in the show notes. I think it's supposed to be episode. Do you have that number?
Yeah, it's just I think it's 370.
I think so. Well, check
on.
Yeah, we'll confirm that in our show notes so that you can have both. So I like this opportunity for you to hear the episode from 2019, episode 108, and then listen to the most recent one because the episode 108 was before the pandemic. And then I like to, just hearing her conversation then and then hearing where she has pivoted to and what she's doing, what she's done since then and what she's focused on now, which is not completely different, but just a lot has happened over those years. And it was really exciting to be able to capture that story and to bring that update. She has held many leadership roles and she's just a dynamic person and very engaging, again, in person, online, very approachable. All of my guests that we're introducing you to are very approachable. So we're also making it very easy for you to kind of lower that factor of, oh gosh, I don't know how to feel about these people. I think these people are going to be very receptive and responsive. So I encourage you to check out Dr. Karen Bencera-Cuevas, both her episodes, and then engage with her on LinkedIn. Make sure you let her know that you heard both of her episodes, if that's the case, if you listen to both. She'll get such a kick out of that.
And then the third person that I thought of was Dr. Oscar Elaine from episode 313 in 2023. But I believe we also interviewed a second time also earlier on. So another interesting one to hear, earlier on and the most recent, how, where he's at now and what's changed. But he's the managing director of the public health division at MITRE Health. In his episodes, he's very passionate about what he does and passionate about elevating and improving the health outcomes of the communities. As people are in the business of public health, he's very almost enthusiastic too. I felt like listening to him in those conversations. And I think he'd be another great person to network with. Lots of great advice and very open and welcoming kind of person. I felt just from my little bit of working with him and getting him connected on the podcast here.
Actually, it's Dr. Oscar Allen, and it's common for people to mispronounce his last name.
Okay.
I was looking that as you were talking. He first appeared on our podcast back in episode 45.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. Back then, he was a senior advisor of health programming at NACCHO, and then was promoted recently after that to chief of programs at NACCHO before, moving along to MITRE. So although that episode, I remember the audio technical part of that. I don't know, you guys, back in episode 45, we were in a whole different world and space, but you can certainly listen to it. Just, keep that in mind. But hearing him in his most recent episode in 313, which was last year, 2023. So I just really encourage you to check that one out as well. He's such a great personality and a true applied epidemiologist. So he is, we all have these strong academic backgrounds, but he is truly boots on the ground, involved in the community, has done the work, and then led the programs in all the local organizations, health departments, and then up into, his more natural, a little bit more diverse work. He's just such a great episode to listen to. He's a very passionate leader in public health and very engaging, Mr. Personality for sure. So he is not one that you should be you have any hesitation to reach out to and engage with, absolutely let him know you heard him on this podcast episode. He's another personal friend that as well. And just someone that I can, I told you guys I'm biased. I love all my guests on this podcast, but if you listen to his episodes and any of that resonates with you, you like what you're hearing, it's another one that's very easy to reach out to and network with. So I definitely, and he's very visible at a lot of conferences as well. So if you're looking to attend, it'd be worth checking to see if he would be there as well. I just remembered Dr. Brian O'Buckley and Dr. Oscar Allen both like wearing bow ties. So you'll likely see them ties in person.
Yeah. The next person that I had thought of was from episode 348 this year. And it was Dr. Sandy Asari Hogan. She's the director of ORS Impact, and she has some expertise in evaluation and social impact strategy. She was another person that, talked a lot about all of her experience and how she wears many hats in her role. So lots of experience in many areas. Some of her many hats were an evaluator and health educator and a community builder, and another very passionate person. You can hear it, when she's talking. But yeah, I think she'd be another great person for our listeners to connect with and reach out to.
Yeah, this is another good choice too. I agree. And we also had her on the podcast back way back, episode 78.
78.
So another one, these are great examples, Laura, because a lot of these conversations, the initial interviews were before the pandemic. And then to hear them recently, I think it just really adds a lot of value, a lot that you can take away, and you really get to know them well. Yeah, I really agree. Another one that is very engaging across social media. She's very active. She's always worn many hats. And that's part of the charm, I think. But that's also, I think, common for a lot of leaders in public health, as we're seeing. But yes, I really encourage you to listen to those episodes and connect with her. Yeah, awesome. So we have one more.
Yes, one more. And that was from episode 270 in 2022. And it's Dr. Andrea Prinzi. She's a clinical microbiologist, a science communicator, and infectious disease specialist. So another one with many hats and lots of experience. Her episode, she discusses why science communication needs to improve the debate, the validity of testing kits. So I thought she would be a good person to kind of connect with just based off of her experience, her many hats again, and another very open person. I feel like listening to her conversation with you.
Yeah, I remember that conversation. I love that her background and my background, it was very similar. So the clinical microbiology background, of course, that's where I worked in healthcare before coming to public health, and infectious disease, just like her. And she has a master's in public health. So she combined that healthcare and the clinical microbiology in public health. And I thought that was really intriguing. We had a lot of little geeky moments during our interview because we reflected back on, I think she's got a new position, if I remember correctly. But at the time of the interview, she worked for bioMérieux. And we went back, that was a producer. They created a lot of the testing kits that we used in the laboratory back in the old days. So we had like a little geeky moment going down memory lane, talking about the old testing kits and the old days of microbiology and working on the bench and all the stuff that we used to do. So that was just kind of a fun conversation for me to engage with her about something that, my work from many years ago, but also just a great person in terms of, this background of coming from clinical healthcare setting into public health. So if you're someone that has made a transition like that, or is making that type of a transition, or it's just a great conversation to hear. So I really recommend, and she's very, very active on social media and very engaged on LinkedIn for sure. So I would certainly recommend listening to that episode and then engaging with her. And like I said, my memory is telling me that I saw something where she's she's changed position. So this might be a good opportunity for me to reach out to her and follow up and connect. But yeah, I highly recommend that episode and reaching out to her as well. These are really good examples. I don't know how you narrowed it down, but great job.
It was hard, but
yes,
I did it.
Like I said, I think these are great to start with in terms of, listening and reaching out, networking. But any of our guests would be a great option for you. I think that in general, keep in mind that this podcast is really a resource for that, for networking opportunities as you listen to people share about their journey and what they do. And they always share some advice and tidbits. So I think that's, just something to remember and share with other folks in the field that, could also benefit and find this helpful. Again, connect with them on LinkedIn. All of their information is on the show notes page for their episode. So you can easily scan through and scroll through all of our episodes. The easy way to get to the show notes page is phecpodcast.com. And that's just a shortened link that we have that takes you to our website, which is DrCHHuntley.com. But it's easier if you're listening and trying to have anything to write it down with, to remember phecpodcast.com. We do share the links in the description for this episode that take you directly there as well. So as we wrap up, I would like to just remind you that we are going to be present at several upcoming conferences in the fall, and then even going into the early part of next year. We've got that already on our calendars and in our plans. Large conference that we're going to be attending, the largest one for this year will be APHA, so the American Public Health Association conference at the end of October in Minnesota. So we're going to be there. We'll have a booth this year. So we are encouraging you, if you're listening and you're planning to attend that conference, make sure you find us in the exhibit hall. We would love for you to, if you've been a guest on our podcast, make sure that you come to our booth and let us know. We want to meet with you, take photos, and we actually have a little gift for you, for anyone who's been a guest on our podcast. And then also, if you are a listener, recent listener, a longtime listener, just come up to us and let us know. We want to meet with you as well. We want to take photos and meet with you and just, build connection. This is all, this whole networking circle. This is a great way we're very approachable, I promise. And we would love to meet with the people that are listening to the podcast and know how it's helping you and just engage with you face to face. So certainly join us on social media. But if you're going to be at this conference, we really encourage you to come to our booth and let us know that you're a listener, and we'll have some pretty cool items to share with you as well. All right, Laura, any final thoughts before we let them go?
No, I agree. Just excited to be at the conference and to meet some of our listeners. So just emphasizing that. Come say hi to us, meet us, network, and just kind of build relationships together. It'll be fun.
Yes, I agree. All right, everyone. Until next time, have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you for listening to the Public Health Epidemiology Conversations podcast. Visit phecpodcast.com to find the show notes for each episode and to learn how to work with me.